Hi there, and welcome to Optimize Every Day. I'm out here on Estate Mount Washington. I'm really glad that they're letting me record out here. Uh, Welcome again to Optimize Every Day, and I am Doug. I still am, and today we're going to be talking about the 1% and how that makes a huge difference. So let's roll on. So, what is the 1% rule? Well, that's where we say if you do 1%, that little tiny amount, over time it'll compound and it'll make huge differences. So, um, look at it this way: if you're making a 1% improvement every day, ultimately it compounds to improving you 37 times what you put into it from the first day. Now, that seems like a whole lot, and it seems like, that's impossible to maintain. And in some ways, yes, that's true. In other ways, you can make massive improvements. It's just like if you ask somebody, how long does it take to become an expert? Well, roughly about 10,000 hours or 2 years before you can become an expert. So there is some um, science to this idea. So, back as an example of how this works, back in 2000, the British had their cycling team had never won Olympics. They hadn't uh, won a Tour de France. They really hadn't done anything in the world of cycling for an extremely long time. So the coach at the time, which was named Dave, it'll come back to me, um, Dave Brailsford, um, he decided that they were going to make some incremental changes in how they do things with the British cycling team. So they changed how they wash their hands, they changed their sleep cycles, they changed lots of little tiny things. And they did them a little bit at a time. So it wasn't like they did it all in one day. It was a simple little change each and every day that ultimately led to them having a significant improvement in their operations and how they function as a team, and leading them to win Olympic medals and even a Tour de France. It's the little tiny changes that can be made that ultimately are huge improvements, and we need to keep in mind that we don't have to make big changes every day. We need to make small changes that build new habits, build new ways of doing things. And yeah, we've talked about habits and how they don't take a long time to create, provided you want to create those habits. Now, you know, it's this 1% improvement doesn't happen just in your personal areas, it can be expanded to other areas. Business is one where, you know, money is king and making improvements are important, and we're constantly looking at one way. Well, one company that I'm sure you've heard of, named Toyota, uses a principle called Kaizen. And Kaizen is basically simple, small changes to make huge impact. And so as employees were working on the factory floor, they would suggest improvements. And those improvements, were often simple. Placement of a tool that allowed them to move inside the factory easier. Um, the way something rolled into the factory and was placed so that it could be installed on the car faster. None of these things added up to much time on any one single individual car, but it added enough value to the company that it increased production on many cars. So they got more cars out the door. And so they are constantly looking at ways to improve their processes at Toyota to reduce their costs and increase their profits. So, whether you're in business, trying to improve yourself and trying to improve your personal organization, your personal business, or the company you work for, making small changes constantly that are improving how things are going is better than trying to implement a massive major change that could very well disrupt the entire environment and cause a lot of confusion. I remember working for one particular company, and we changed one of our software systems. And the chaos that ensued by a major change, while the software we went to was better, um, it was a big disruption in the workflow and how people were working, and the software didn't work the same as the old software. It wasn't exactly intuitive to the other program. So there was a steep learning curve. It really disrupted production within that company um, for several weeks until finally people started to get the hang of it. And then once they started getting the hang of it, then they began to teach each other how to use the software. So ultimately, big changes bad, little changes good. But if you have to make big changes, start with a small team that can help you to have that disruption within them, and then have them help others to grasp the new application and then move forward into it so that it's easier on the business with those changes. Granted, there'll be costs involved in doing that, but it definitely makes it easier for the employees to make small changes than it is for them to make huge changes. So, how do you apply the 1% rule in your life? Well, you decide what things you're going to work on. It could be as simple as saying, hey, I need to improve my financial situation. So you could say, I'm going to deposit 1% of my paycheck into savings. And every time you get a paycheck, you put that 1% in. And at the end of the year, it's more than that 1% because obviously you get some compounded interest there. Uh, it could be in some physical activity. Let's say that you want to get to the point where you can run a half marathon, or just maybe a 5K. You start by getting your shoes on today. Tomorrow you put your shoes on and you step out the door. The following day you put your shoes on, you step out the door, and you walk to the end of your driveway. The following day you put your shoes on, you step out the door, you go to the end of your driveway, and you head up the street. At some point, then you begin to run in that process. And before you know it, you're running a 5K. It's not a simple thing where you're doing it in one big leap. You're doing it over 2, 3 months worth of time, and you're finding big successes over time. It's not an instantaneous success. Optimize yourself to be able to do those things. Make it a priority in your life to make those 1% changes. Track how you're doing. Even tracking becomes something that's an easy 1% thing, where you can track what you're eating, you can track where you walk to, you can track how you use your time. Either way, you're keeping track and you're making an effort at your 1% improvement. The 1% rule is not this big flashy thing that you can do over a period of minutes. It's something that you have to know that you're going to be doing over the long term. You know, measure your results over months, not days. Measure your improvement over the long term, not minutes. And when eventually you get to the point where you're going, oh my goodness, I am so much better at this than I was in January or last December or last summer. You know, 6 months ago I could barely put my shoes on. Now it's I don't even remember putting my shoes on. It's such a habit. Making yourself accountable to yourself, and maybe you might want to make yourself accountable to somebody else so that you have those improvements and you make it work for yourself and make it be a marvelous thing that you're making an improvement. And then record your successes. Make sure that you know that you're succeeding. And maybe, you can let other people know what your successes are so that they can start implementing what you're doing to improve their successes as well. Well, if you've liked this video, please like and subscribe. If there's any comments you have or would like to see me talk about something specific, make a comment. Let me know what you want to talk about, and we can go there too. We're always looking for your comments, and we're definitely looking for your subscriptions. And y'all have a wonderful rest of your day. And thanks for coming to Optimize Every Day. Bye.